Yagyat bhavati parjanyo. So much of Sankirtan Yagya has been performed in one last fortnight. So torrential of unseasonal rains is being experienced. And what is Yagya? Yagya karma samudbhava. So we will continue the discussion from the third chapter, which is Karma Yoga. Karma means action or performance of prescribed duties. And yoga means connection or communion with the Supreme Lord. So this chapter gives us the process. It prescribes us the path, how we can, while we are in this material world, performing our normal duties, we can still connect with the Supreme Lord. Before I begin discussion, we will have prayers of invocation and then we will discuss this chapter further. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vansha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Presthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita is one book which has been spoken by the Supreme Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Because in our life, we will face many battles. Battles, why? Because there is always a conflict. There is always a conflict of opinions. There are so many conflicts between what we want to do and what we are forced to do. So in such situations of conflict, what we should do, so Bhagavad Gita gives us the guiding principles. So in the third chapter, which is very important chapter, as we discussed, Arjuna is perplexed, Arjuna is bewildered, he is in confusion. He is thinking that if he acts, if he performs the action, he will be inflicted by sinful reaction. So better not to perform the action. But Krishna is enlightening him. Krishna is removing his misconception by establishing the principle that one who does not act to perform his duty is liable to face sin. And if one performs his duty, how duty has to be performed? Like a yagna or a sacrifice. So the purpose of human life, everyone in this human form of life is seeking pleasure, is seeking joy, is seeking happiness. How he can be freed from all kinds of sufferings. And why sufferings come? Because of sin. There is no suffering without sin. Sin is the root cause of suffering. And why people perform sin? Because they are in ignorance. What is the ignorance which is covering them? The ignorance that they do not know what is their duty. And because they are not performing their duty, they are inflicted by sin. So Bhagavad Gita removes the veil of misconception which is there in the form of impressions or opinions that we have in our heart, and gives us the clarity to what action we should perform. And here, this chapter is entitled as Karma Yoga. Through one's action, one can worship the Supreme, one can satisfy the Supreme, one can connect with the Supreme, and one can achieve the Supreme Lord. So we saw in the last section that we discussed, that last section was from verse 10 till 16, after Krishna established the principle of how one has to perform every action as yajna, as sacrifice. So, but Arjuna inquired subtly that those who are not at the level of sacrifice, those who cannot perform yajna, what about them? So Krishna gave them the yoga ladder. We discussed to some extent the yoga ladder, that what one has to do, one has to perform his prescribed duties. What is the basis of performing the prescribed duty? Is to be guided by the Vedas. And where is the Vedas coming from? The Vedas are coming from the Supreme. So as one follows the Vedas, or as one follows the guidance of the spiritual master, he is gradually elevated from unrestricted sense gratification, which is like an animal life. He comes to regulated sense gratification, which is karma kand, by following the Vedas. And because he follows the Vedas, he performs sacrifice. Sacrifice of his resources, of his money, of his possessions, of his positions. And with sacrifice comes detachment. Detachment is the result of as one gains knowledge, transcendental knowledge. And knowledge breeds detachment. So one elevates to the ladder of from karma to jnana, to jnana. And finally, he elevates to perform all action for the pleasure of the Supreme. That is Bhakti Yoga, which is the top rung of the ladder. So if you see the first 6 chapters, Krishna is emphasizing on performing action. That is Karma Yoga. So first 6 chapters talks about duty. So many times I have, shared this. The middle 6 chapter talk about devotion. And the final 6 chapter talks about detachment. But detachment is the result of knowledge. So the first 6 chapters are basically emphasizing on karma. And the middle 6 chapters are emphasizing on bhakti. And the final 6 chapters are emphasizing on jnana. So after having spoken these verses where Krishna is elevating Arjuna, he is guiding through Arjuna, all of us, that we should not act whimsically. A very important aspect. You understand what is whimsically? That means independent-minded action. That action is sinful. So we should be guided. And what should be the guiding force? It should be Shastra, Vedas. But how to know? Vedas are so vast. There are so much mentioned in the Vedas, so many sacrifices are recommended. Which sacrifice to perform? So for that, we need guidance. Like if somebody wants to be a scientist, so can he go to the library, pick up any book, read whatever he likes, and then become a scientist? That is not possible. So he has to be under someone who is expert, and he has to adhere to whatever is his curriculum. Similarly, we need, along with the Vedas, we need Guru and Sadhu. And they will help us to perform sacrifice yajna. And we understood what is the cycle of sacrifice is that everyone subsists on grain, as we said, and grains comes from rain. And rains happens when one is performing yajna, and yajna, how to perform, that is mentioned in the Vedas. So this is the cycle of sacrifice. So 16th verse till 16th verse we discussed that 16th verse says, Evam pravartitam chakram nanu vartyate yaha aghayor indriya ramo mogham partha sajivati. That one who does not follow in this human life the cycle of sacrifice which Krishna has recommended, which is established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. So see, people are so many times complaining, why am I suffering? I have not done anything wrong, or I have not, committed any sinful action, or I have not snatched somebody else's property or possession or wife. Why am I suffering? This is the reason that one has not followed in this human form of life the cycle of sacrifice. And further, Krishna says that he is living only for the satisfaction of the senses, and such a person lives in vain. But what about the person who is following the cycle of sacrifice? So that is the next section. From the 17th verse, that is the new section. So far we have covered principally two sections. The first section was from verse number 1 to 8, where Arjuna is raising his question, his doubt, his confusion, whether to work or to renounce the work. He is inquiring about inaction. And Krishna completely smashes that by saying that one cannot refrain from performing an action, not even for a moment. What are you speaking? And then Krishna, in the next section, which we discussed last time, from 9th verse till the 16th verse, Krishna is recommending the step-by-step progress path by introducing the cycle of sacrifice. And the cycle of sacrifice, what we principally understood, that we can perform Sankirtan Yajna. Simple. Most simple way is to perform Sankirtan Yajna and to accept the remnants of the Lord, which is offered as Bhoga or Prasad. And now for those who are following the cycle of sacrifice, what is their attitude, what is their approach, and what is their action? So this is mentioned in the next few verses. So we'll take the 17th verse, very beautiful verse. It speaks about the level of the person who is performing his action as it is prescribed. What is the result of such a person who is performing yajna? Verse number 17. Yastu atmarati revsyat atmatriptascha manava atmani evascha santushtas tasya karyam na vidyate. So Krishna is saying that yastu atmarati, but one who takes pleasure in the self, one who is performing yajna, especially the Sankirtan yajna, he is addressed here as Atmaratir. Rati means attraction. And Atma means the soul, or something which is eternal, which is spiritual. So everyone in this world has attraction for something which is non-spiritual, which is matter, which has a beginning and which ends. But someone who is performing yajna, because he is performing yajna, what are the two side effects of performing yajna? Is knowledge and detachment. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prema yojita janayati asu vairagyam jnanam cha yad ahetukam. This is there in the second chapter of the first canto. The one who is performing devotional service, one who is performing Sankirtan Yajna, so there are two side effects, that there is detachment and there is knowledge. So what is he detached from? He is detached from everything which is temporary. So it does not take pleasure in which is, how can anything which is temporary, which has a beginning and an end, be the cause of pleasure? It may initially be the cause of pleasure, but that pleasure itself will become the cause of suffering or the tribulation. So he is not interested. So such a person is Atma Ratir. His attraction is not on the impermanent. His attraction is not for something which takes birth and which dies. His attraction is in something which is eternal, which is permanent. That is Atma. So he is Atma Ratir. Everyone else in this material world, they are Bhoga Ratir. But this person is Atma Ratir. So that is the attitude. And what is the approach? Atma Triptascha Manava. And he is self-satisfied. He seeks satisfaction in the self. And what is the self? The self is not the body. The self is not the mind. The self is not the inflated false ego. The self is the eternal soul, which is part and parcel of the Supreme. So he is completely satiated. He has no hankerings. He has no cravings. He is Atmani eva cha santushta. Twice Krishna is emphasizing. Tripta means one who is full. Full means that he has no hankering. Then again Krishna is emphasizing Atmani eva cha santushta. That is fully satisfied. For such a person, tasya karyam na vidyate. For him, there is nothing prescribed to be done. Why? Because he is already liberated. He is freed. He has already surpassed the stage of seeking liberation. Very beautiful verse. Again, try to understand this. For one who takes pleasure in the self, this is the difference between a spiritualist and a materialist. A spiritualist means one who is seeking pleasure within. Now, what is materialist? One who is trying to find pleasure from outside. There is no pleasure outside because everything outside is temporary. Further, whose human life is one of self-realization. So his goal is clear. He is fixed. And who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. So far Krishna has been speaking that you cannot give up your duty, not even for a moment. But that is for those people who have material desires and those who are not performing every action as yajna. So they are within the material modes. They are within the law of karma. They are within the law of kala. But on the other hand, there are other spiritualists, those who are in this position, which Krishna is speaking here. For them, Krishna is saying, they are not bound to perform anything because they are already liberated. Let us see the purport. For a person who is fully Krishna conscious and is fully satisfied by his acts in Krishna consciousness, no longer has any duty to perform due to his being Krishna conscious. So there are two aspects we have always discussed. One is to become Krishna conscious. What is the understanding of being Krishna conscious? Those who are hearing new, will you like to try what it means to be Krishna conscious? So now Krishna is speaking about those who are Krishna conscious. Arjuna was speaking as if he is not Krishna conscious. He was inquiring that question, being Krishna unconscious. He did not want to fight. So again and again, he was giving so many arguments. So what it means to be Krishna conscious? Here Prabhupada is saying, a person who is fully Krishna conscious. So first we have to understand what is Krishna conscious person and what is the stage of being fully Krishna conscious. Yes? Please participate. What it means to be Krishna conscious and what it means to be fully Krishna conscious. Bhagavad Gita is an interactive discourse. Arjuna inquired 84 verses. And all these 84 verses, some are for glorification of Krishna, but most of them are inquiries. Yes, please. There is no negative marking here. If your answer is not correct, no, marks will be deducted. Nothing, you will lose. But there will be an impetus to understand better. Most of the videos are off.
Belief in God.
Believe in God. Yes. Very good. Yeah. To be Krishna conscious means that believe in God. Very good. Can you further elaborate what it means to believe in God? Because, in the American Constitution, they have this line, in God we trust. Yeah. One second. Have you heard? Have you heard this? In God we trust. But do the Americans have any trust in God? Dalamani, the answer was to come from the, assembly you have. They were participating. Yes, yes, please make an attempt. So what it means to be, that one is having belief in God. Having belief in God means that one follows the guidance of the God. That is it. What does the belief mean? Belief means that we accept the Supreme as the authority. Like we have for all the citizens in this country, how are we guided? We are guided by the Constitution, by the law, and the law enforcing agency. That means we agree to abide. Yes, Nulamani, there is a hand raised from your side.
So you asked me to elaborate, right? It's like whatever action we perform, we are doing it believing God that He supports us in whatever action we perform.
Yeah. So to have more clarity, if we say we believe in God, that means we are agreeing to follow whatever God or whatever His guidance is, providing to us. Yes. If Americans say in God we trust, and the Bible says that thou shalt not kill, isn't it? And in America, there are so many hundreds and thousands of slaughterhouses, corporate slaughterhouses. So do they believe in God? Or do they have any trust in God? They don't. It is just a mere statement with no value or no belief, or rather no trust, rather mistrust. So Krishna conscious person means one who knows his relationship with Krishna. And what is that relationship with Krishna? That Krishna is our master and we are his servants. So we are meant to serve him. When one comes to this level of awareness or awakening, most important is the awakening. In the dormant stage, in the impure stage, one wants to become the master. He does not want to serve the master. So when one becomes elevated to this position of accepting the authority of the Supreme Lord as the master, also accepting the subordination of the self, that is more important. We may accept Krishna as the authority, but we may also accept that our mind is also the authority. Then it will not work. That is not Krishna consciousness. So one who is fully Krishna conscious means he has accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one who is the proprietor, one who is the enjoyer, one who is the protector of everything and everyone, including myself. And is fully satisfied by his acts in Krishna consciousness, no longer has any duty to perform. Due to his being Krishna conscious, all impiety within is instantly cleansed. An effect of many, many thousands of yajna performance. So one who has become Krishna conscious, he has surpassed the cycle of yajna. Like one who has completed PhD, then he need not go to this college because he has passed all of it. So being Krishna conscious means that he has accepted the authority of the Supreme Lord, and he has also accepted the subordinate position of him, and the purpose of his life is to serve the Supreme. There is no confusion, there is no conflict in this, and he is happily satisfied in performing actions for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. And when one comes to realize his position, then every impiety or every sin or any sinful reaction, everything is already burned to ashes. When we will come into the 4th chapter, Krishna will speak this principle. Yatha edhamsi samridho agni bhasmasat kurte yatha jnana agni dagda karmanam bhasmasat kurte tata. So as the fire burns to ashes, the wood, similarly this knowledge, what is this knowledge? Is the knowledge of our position and the position of the Supreme Lord. So when one is situated in this level of awakening or understanding, then he has no sinful reaction or no impiety, as here Prabhupada is saying, which is instantly cleansed, an effect of many, many thousands of yajna performance. By such clearing of consciousness, see the word, what is to be cleansed is the consciousness. Consciousness is what? What the consciousness is? What we think we are. Everyone in this world is thinking that how he can be a better person or he can be better placed if he has the facility to become enjoyer, proprietor, or controller. That is contaminated consciousness. Everyone is trying to take the position of Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer. He is the ultimate controller. So unless and until everyone is struggling in this pursuit, he is Krishna unconscious. So such clearing of consciousness, one becomes fully confident of his eternal position in relationship with the Supreme. His duty thus becomes self-illuminated by the grace of the Lord. So he is already liberated. He is already freed from all bondage. And therefore, he has no longer any obligations to the Vedic injunctions. Such a Krishna conscious person is no longer interested in material activities and no longer takes pleasure in material arrangements like wine, women, and similar infatuation. That means he is not seeking any sense pleasure. He has elevated himself from the sensual, mental, intellectual pleasures platforms to come to the level of soul, eternal platform. For such a person, there is no need to perform any prescribed duties. There is a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, which speaks about this. It is quoted in the first chapter. It is quoted in the 41st verse of the first chapter. Anyone can show the screen that what is the obligation which everyone has when he comes into this material world. But for a person who is Krishna conscious, one who is fully Krishna conscious, you understand, please, what is Krishna conscious? One who has understood his eternal relation with the Lord. That the Lord is my master and I am his subordinate, his servant. And my duty is to serve my master. If one is convinced and he has deep conviction and clarity in his heart, then for him there is nothing left to be done in this world. This is first chapter and 41st verse. Prabhupada is quoting this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, please come down in the purport. That verse is there. You have to scroll down, Manish Prabhu. Yeah. So it is said, one who is engaged in devotional life is not required to perform such actions. Simply by performing, one line down, simply by performing devotional service, one can deliver hundreds and thousands of forefathers from all kinds of misery, as it is stated in Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, 41st. What it says, Devarishi Bhutapta Nirnam Pitranam Na Kinkaro Nayam Rinicharajan Sarvatmanaya Sharanam Sharanyam Gato Mukundam Pariharta Kirtam. So one has obligation to how many? See, to Devas, to the demigods. Why? Because the demigods are providing all the necessities. The rain is coming by the demigod, the grain is coming by the demigod, the sunshine, the moonshine, electricity, everything, the air, we are dependent on the Devas, the demigods. Then Rishis, the sages. Then Bhutas. The Bhutas mean the fellow living beings. So this way, anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation, gives up all kind of obligation and has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, and then Apta means the family members, then humankind, it is Nirnam, and Pitranam is the forefathers. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by performance of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the ultimate yagya. Thank you, Manish Prabhu. You can close the share. So that is the ultimate yagya, is performing devotional service. So for such a person, here Krishna is recommending, he is not bound to perform any action. A very important aspect what Prabhupada is explaining, that he no longer takes pleasure in material arrangements like wine, women, and similar infatuations. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim. Rather, he has distaste for them. Why? Because he is having the higher taste. He is having the pleasure of the spiritual aspect, the soul. So for all this temporary thing, he has complete distaste. Further, Krishna is explaining in the 18th verse, for such a personality, Neva tasya kritenartho na akritena kaschana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kaschidartha vipashraya Neva tasya kritenartho. For such a person, a self-realized man, what is self-realization? One who has understood who he is. As I said, what is the consciousness of what we think, what we are? If we think I am a husband, what all the time we are thinking about? We are thinking about the wife, we are thinking about the kids, we are thinking about so many things related and connected to them. If I am thinking that I am a student, what am I thinking? I'm always thinking about my career. I'm always thinking about my studies. I'm thinking about my exams. I'm thinking about the competition, whether will I get admission or not. So these are all temporary things. It has nothing to do with the soul. So one who is Krishna conscious, he is thinking about Krishna. So for such a person, a self-realization, he has realized his position, his eternal relation with the Lord. For such a self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duty, because prescribed duty elevates one to come to this realization. So if he has achieved the realization, then he need not. His purpose is already fulfilled. Nor has he any reason not to perform such work. Both. Neither he has the need nor the reason, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. Why? Because he is Atma Santushtaha. If you see the second chapter also, when Krishna was talking about a person who is in transcendence, who is self-realized, this is what Krishna answered. Anyone remembers which verse is this from the second chapter? Similar verse where Krishna answered to what Arjuna inquired. Atmani eva tasantushta tasya pragya pratishtita prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata. I think it is the 55th verse, second chapter and 55th verse, when Krishna is telling Arjuna that prajahati yada kaman, one who has given up all material hankerings. Kaman means the desire to enjoy or to desire to seek happiness from where? From matter. Prajahati means he has given up all varieties of such pleasure-seeking attempts or aspirations. And where is this aspiration coming from? Sarvan Partha Manogata, from his mana, from his mind. And how is this person? Is Atmani eva cha santushta. Same thing, santushta here. And is Atmani means he is taking pleasure in the self, in the soul level. He is not interested in the pleasure at the sensual level or at the mental level, not even at the intellectual level or at the egoistic level. So for such a man, there is nothing prescribed to be done. Let us see the purport of the 18th verse. A self-realized man is no longer obliged to perform any prescribed duty, save and accept activities in Krishna consciousness. This is very important. This is the principle. There are two aspects of performing prescribed duties. So many times we have discussed. One is the Swadharma and the other is the Sanatan Dharma. Swadharma pertains to the body. Till the time we are in this body, we are in this conditioned form. So we have to perform duty according to our Varna and Ashrama. Like the student must study, the housewives, they must take care of their family, they must cook, and they must do all the household affairs. The husband must go out and earn. He must protect the family members. That is his duty. He cannot give it up. So this is the Swadharma. Dharma which is belonging to the body. So the connection, the relation is with body. But the other dharma is the Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma which pertains to the soul, which is the eternal. So Swadharma, when one has realized position, a self-realized man, as Prabhupada is saying here, who has realized what his position is, for him there is no Swadharma. But Sanatan Dharma can never be given up. Please be very clear in this. Do not mix both. Like there are two parallel tracks of a railway. So the Sanatan Dharma, even for a person who is liberated, it continues. It cannot be given up. Because that is the nature of the soul. What? When one has become Krishna conscious, what is the natural function of the soul? Is to perform service. To save and accept activities in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not inactivity. either as will be explained in the following verses. So sometimes people, those who are immature or those who have not understood what is Krishna consciousness, they try to come to us thinking that once we enter into the temple or into the monastery, we will be free from all work. We have nothing to work. No, Krishna consciousness is not inactivity, but rather Krishna consciousness is 24 hours engagement in activity of performing devotional service. And practically we saw it. When in this Silver Jubilee celebration, hardly devotees slept. Our coordinator, the chief coordinator, he hardly slept for days, even more than 5 days. There was so much to serve. There was so much to coordinate and perform. It is not inactivity. Rather, it is very difficult for an outsider to come to the schedule of Krishna conscious devotees because our day begins very early, from 3 or 3:30, and it extends till 10 or 10:30 or even at 11 or even at midnight till night. No rest in between. Continuous action. But action for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So it is not inactivity, as it will be explained in the following verses. A Krishna conscious man does not take shelter of any person. This is very important. 4 reasons of the influence of Kali Yuga. Why Kali Yuga is rampant? That there is over dependence on others. We don't depend. We depend on Krishna. Our dependence is on the Supreme Lord. It is not, we are not dependent on anyone else's support or mercy. Or demigod, both. Whatever he does in Krishna consciousness is sufficient in the discharge of his obligation. So that is the attitude and that is the approach. Further, Krishna is emphasizing on what is the mindset, how he performs the action, what is his approach while performing the action. That comes in the next verse. Krishna is saying, Tasmadasakta satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hi acharan karma paramapnoti purushaha. Tasmat means Krishna is giving the conclusion. For a person who is atmarati, who is atmatushtaha, such a person, he is always tasmad asakta satatam. Satatam means continuously, without interval. What is the quality of such a self-realized soul? That is asaktaha. Sakta means attached, and asakta means detached. But what is he detached from? He is detached from the result or from the fruit of his action. While he continuously performs the action, but he does not aspire to enjoy the result or fruit of the action. And karyam karma samachara. Therefore, without being attached to the fruit of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. What is the biggest stumbling block or defect in not being able to perform our duty is the desire. And what is the desire? Desire to enjoy the fruit of our action. So without being attached, person who is Krishna conscious, who is Atmarati, who is Atmatushta, or who is Atmani, he is detached. One should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the Supreme. This is the key, this is the secret. Here Krishna is clearly saying, Asakto hi acharan. Acharan, you understand? Acharan is the conduct. Conduct, how he, what is this dealings or how he conducts himself. He is always without attachment to the mentality of enjoying the result or fruit of his action. And because he is detached, he has the possibility of attaining the Supreme. Asakto hi acharan karma. Krishna is giving the principle here very clearly. So while we are performing the action, we should not think of the result. If we are meditating on the result, that means inevitably we are wanting to enjoy the result. Like if we have been asked to do some service, we should do the service. But we should not be thinking that whether I will be benefiting from this service or not, whether I will gain out from this service or not, whether what will be the public opinion of others. So many thoughts and so many, questions comes in our mind. So that should not be there. Therefore, without being attached to the fruit of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. How one has to act? As a matter of duty. So desires do not allow us to come to the platform of duty. So that is lowest level is the level of desire. How one acts to fulfill the desire. But higher pedestal than desire is duty. Duty means whether I gain or I lose, I must perform. And Krishna is saying here that as one acts as a matter of duty without attachment, one attains the Supreme. Param apnoti purushaha. Purusha is the Supreme. Apnoti is the attain. And Param is the Supreme himself. The Supreme is the personality of Godhead for the devotees and liberation for the impersonalists. So there are three types of transcendentalists. Many times we have discussed. Transcendentalists are at the three levels. Like we have education at many levels. There is education at the level of schooling. Then there is education at the level of graduation or college. But then there is education at the level of post-graduation or PhD. Not everyone is the same. So similarly, Prabhupada is explaining here that for the devotees, the Supreme Lord in his personal form is the personality of Godhead. And for those who are impersonalists, those who are seeking liberation through the process of knowledge, jnana, they are impersonalist. A person, therefore, acting for Krishna or in Krishna consciousness under proper guidance and without attachment to the result of the work is certainly making progress towards the supreme goal of life. So here the principle and the process is very clearly defined. So acting for Krishna. Acting for Krishna means that Krishna is the master and Krishna is the enjoyer. So whatever action that we perform, we are not attached to receive the reward or result of that action. So who will receive the result or the reward? Krishna. How we can perform such an action at the practical level, where Krishna is receiving the reward? When we are chanting. When we are chanting, it is so difficult for us. Our mind is completely in a rebellious mood, not willing to chant. Why? Because it cannot enjoy. Is there someone at that level who is enjoying his chanting, who does not want to stop at 16? He wants to continue to chant 32, 64, 108. Any such elevated soul? The mind is always thinking, when will I finish? Why? Why chanting is so difficult? Because we do not get the opportunity to enjoy. Who is the enjoyer of chanting? Because chanting is yajna. And the enjoyer is Krishna. Because we cannot enjoy that action, we don't want to perform. But how to come out of that enjoying mentality is to continue to chant. Chant, chant, and chant. Krishna is saying that among all the yagyas, I am the japa yagya. So who is receiving the reward? That is the Supreme Lord. And what is the reward? That he is able to know that we are keen and eager to revive our relationship with him. That is why we are chanting. So whatever the mind may say, whatever the body may say, whatever the friends may say, whatever the relatives may say, whoever may say whatever, we should not be distracted, we should not be diverted, we should not be degraded. We should be determined to perform what Krishna is saying. That is what a person is Krishna conscious. Otherwise, he is either self-conscious or he is friend conscious or whatever level of consciousness he may be. But that is all contaminated. So how to do that? Under proper guidance. Is certainly making progress toward the supreme goal of life. Arjuna is told that he should fight in the battle of Kurukshetra for the interest of Krishna, because Krishna wanted him to fight. But what is Arjuna doing? Arjuna is weighing, Arjuna is contemplating what will be the gain, what will be the loss, how much sin will be inflicted. So many deliberations Arjuna is having. And Arjuna is finding so many reasons not to fight. So to the extent we are not chanting, what is the stage? The stage of Arjuna, who is not willing to fight. Why? Because in chanting, we have to fight against the mind. And invariably, the mind wins. So if we really want to tame the mind, we should chant. And in chanting, the most important aspect is to make the mind hear the chant. That is even more difficult. Even if you sit down, if you settle with rigidity that yes, I will chant, but still you will see the mind will not participate. It will be in his own dream world, and it will pull you out, will not allow you to hear the mantra. The mantra is to be heard by the mind, because who is to be reformed? The mind is to be reformed. To the extent we can hear our mantra, to that extent the mind can be freed from impure impressions. What is the impure impression? The mind has the impression that matter, the possessions, what Prabhupada said, wine, wealth, and women can bring us happiness. This is the impression which is etched in our mind. So if the mind hears the mantras, it will be, what is this? Cheto darpan marjanam bhava maha davagni nirvapanam. So it will cleanse the mind of all the false impressions. But provided we hear the mantra, and for that we have to have a real rigorous fight with our mind. So every day, I gave that quote of Prabhupada. Prabhupada is saying, every day, regularly, who's chanting 16 rounds, there cannot be any fall down. Why? Because Lord Chaitanya will personally protect. Why? Because he has fought the biggest battle of his life, that is, he has fought his mind. And he has won over his mind by completing 16 rounds. Whereas others, they are so timid, they are so weak that they give up. And the mind prevails. So here Prabhupada is saying, Arjuna is told by Krishna that you fight. So we are told by our acharyas, by the Supreme Lord, that you chant. So what is there for us to think that whether will I gain or not? It is the ultimate gain. But how can we see a child who has gone to the school in class 1, can he understand what is the benefit of education? Can he ever understand? His understanding is only that if I do not go to the school, but if I go to the playground, that is the way I can be happy. Can he be happy by being in the playground and, giving up the school? So the soul will receive pleasure if we chant, because the chanting will connect with the Supreme Lord. This is the process of connection. So Prabhupada is saying here, Krishna wanted him to fight. To be a good man or a non-violent man is a personal attachment. And Arjuna was showing so much of attachment. He was thinking that if I have to fight, there will be so much of violence, so much of killing, and killing means sin, and sin means suffering. So why should I fight? Better for me not to fight. Let me go and retire to be in the forest. Then Krishna said that even if you live in forest, how will you sustain? He said, I will beg and sustain. Krishna said, rubbish, nonsense. But to act on behalf of the Supreme is to act without attachment for the result. This is the central theme of this chapter of Karma Yoga. Karma means attachment to result. And yoga means that giving up the result to the Supreme, offering the result to the Supreme, not trying to enjoy. One example I want to give recently, that for this 25 years of Silver Jubilee, we prepared 3 big cakes for to be offered to their lordships. One to Gaur Nitai, that was butterscotch, 25 kg, and for Radha Parsarthi was strawberry, 25 kg, and 25 kg pineapple cake for Ram Darbar. And somehow, because I am the coordinator for the Govinda stacks, it was prepared and we went and offered. But there is temptation so that I should try from each, I should taste, enjoy. No, I am trying the principle, trying to remain aloof, trying to give it to the devotees. But believe me, if you distribute, the happiness is 100 times more. If you try to enjoy it on its own, for few seconds, the tongue will enjoy. And next day, wallet will become, you all know. We have to pass it. We have to flush it out. It is used as it is filth. So detachment will come when we offer the Lord and his devotees. And that satisfaction, that pleasure is unparalleled. Somehow, IRA devotees, I prepared 1 kg cake for them, but I could not come, so I gave it to Guru Maharaj servants. The rain played the spoil sport. You could not have it today. But here Prabhupada is emphasizing to act on behalf of the Supreme is to act without attachment for the result. That is the perfect action of highest degree recommended by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. So most of you are earning, those who are now, passed out. You should not think this is your money. This is my hard-earned money. This is my property. This is my asset. This is my wife. This is my house. The whole world is thinking like this. Once, one of our sannyasis, His Holiness Indradum Swami Maharaj, he was in Russia, and in Russia he has some disciples. One of his disciples was an elderly Russian Mataji. And when Maharaj went to the interiors of Russia, there is a place called Yekaterinburg, very far from Moscow. So Maharaj was traveling there, and she invited Maharaj to come to her house. And Maharaj went to the house of that elderly Mataji. And when Maharaj entered the house, he could see very nice fragrance coming from the incense. And he saw it was only one room house. And in that one room, she had a small altar. And in that altar, she had Giriraj Shila, Giriraj Govardhan Shila. And she was worshipping Giriraj. So Maharaj said, this is your house. And she had level of Krishna consciousness. She said, no, this is Lala's house. She named her Giriraj as Lala. So this is Lala's house. This is the house which belongs to Giriraj. And I am her servant. I am serving Giriraj. So I can also be in the house. We never say that. We never say that whose bank balance is this? Do we say this is Krishna's bank balance? Never. Or this is Krishna's house. When Prabhupada went to London for the first time, he was hosted by the very famous Apple, George Harrison. And Prabhupada said that give this house to Krishna. Huge mansion where our temple is, the Bhakti Vedant Manor temple. It's a huge property and it has huge value in London. But George Harrison, he was so much influenced by Prabhupada, he immediately gave it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada asked him, whose house is this? He said, this is Krishna's house. So he said, let this be Krishna's house. And Prabhupada established the deities. And he moved out of that house. And now that he has become eternal. How long can a person live? How long can he enjoy the property? But in his property, now the Supreme Lord dwells. What about him? One who has given his house to the Supreme Lord, what the Lord will do? The Lord has created his house in his abode. He will reside there eternally. So here Krishna is giving this very important principle, which is there in this 19th verse. Krishna says, Tasmad asakta satatam. Why Krishna has to say satatam? Because at moment we can be detached. Today I can be detached for some moment, but again my conditioning comes back and I become attached. So Krishna is saying satatam. Satatam means that without interruption, always. So this is the very important aspect which Krishna is teaching us, that we have to perform our action. But while we are performing the action, you see, it is an extension of the very famous verse from the second chapter. What is that verse? Karmanne vadhikaraste. You have only one right. What is that right? Is to perform your duty. Ma phaleshu kadachana. So Krishna is explaining that. Ma phaleshu kadachana. That you have no right to enjoy the result of your action. Why? Because do not think that you are the cause of your action. Then Krishna gives the example of those who are actually liberated, or for them there is no work. Then Arjuna may ask, where are such people? Whom to know what is the criteria that one is not to perform duty? Who is that elevated soul who is free from performing prescribed duty? So Krishna gives the example in the next verse, which is the 20th verse. He speaks, he says, Karmaneva hi samsiddhim astita janakadaya loka sangram mevapi tampashyam kartum arhasi. Karmane eva hi samsiddhi. One who has performed samsiddhi. Siddhi means perfection. And samsiddhi means the highest degree of perfection. How? Karmane, by performing prescribed action. One who has achieved perfection. Who is such a person? Asthita janakadaya. It is Janak Maharaj, who is the father of Mother Sita and the father-in-law of Lord Ram. So how is Janak Maharaj liberated? What qualifies him to be liberated? There is one very famous incident which happened with Janak Maharaj. That Janak Maharaj went to the sage. He used to go to visit a sage. And that sage was also very elevated. He used to live in his hermitage, in his ashram. And when Janak used to come, that sage, that Rishi, used to offer pranams, respects to Janak Maharaj. But his shishyas, his disciples, used to think that why Guruji is offering respect to Janak. What is Janak? Janak is a Kshatriya. He is at the lower level of Varna. And this sannyasi is a renunciate. He is a Brahmana. So why a Brahmana is bowing down to Janaka? So they had this doubt. And they were thinking, this king is a worldly man. He is into worldly pleasures. So why we should give him respect? So one day, to remove the misconception in the mind of his disciples, The sage was there with Janak, and so his disciples were there. And he had already trained one of his disciples that when they were having the discussion on Krishna Katha, so that disciple came and said that there is a big fire. There is such a big fire that it has engulfed the entire city. So the palaces of Janak Maharaj are burning. And it has also reached the forest, and it has also reached the ashram. And everything in the ashram is also burning. So as soon as the messenger gave this message, Janak Maharaj remained steady there. He did not show any reaction or any panic. But the other Shishyas who were there, they immediately ran. They ran to their respective cottages. Why? Because they had their gamcha and their undergarments. They wanted to save that from being burned. And when they went there, actually there was no fire. They came back after a while. And when they came back, so the sage asked them, and what happened? Why did you run? Why did you leave from here when we were having Krishna Katha? So they were hearing Krishna Katha, but where was their attachment? Their attachment was in their position. So it is not a conclusion that those who are wearing saffron, they are renounced. No. What is the attitude inside? Attitude must be of detachment. How detachment will come? When we will accept that Krishna is the proprietor. To the extent we accept that we are the proprietor, it is impossible to have detachment. We will always remain attached. Because we are thinking that it belongs to me. It is my possession. It is my property. One cannot be detached. But Krishna consciousness means that when we accept that Krishna is the owner, Krishna is the proprietor, then we can become detached. So Krishna is giving the example of Janakadaya. Through his prescribed performance of action, he achieved the perfection. But still he performs action. What kind of action and why he performs action? Loka Sangram Evaprasi. Therefore, for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Sampashyam kartum arhasi. So even those who are liberated, those who are in the platform, who have no need to perform prescribed duty, still they perform. Why? To set examples for others. So this section is very interesting section. This section talks about exemplary examples. Why Srila Prabhupada traveled to US at the age of 70? Was he not going home back to Godhead? Was he not Atmaratir? Tasya karyam na vidyate? Why? Because he wanted to set the right example. Why our Guru Maharaj at this age? Today is the appearance day of Srila Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, if you see his bodily situation, there are so many complex inabilities in the body. Half of his body is actually paralyzed. But still he performs so much of devotional service. He travels all over the world to preach. Why? To set example. One who is Krishna conscious means he will always serve the Supreme. He cannot refrain himself even for a moment of not serving the Supreme. However difficult it might look or it may be. So we'll take the purport also. Kings such as Janak attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. So Krishna is saying, what a bad example you are going to set, Arjuna. You are going to spoil the forthcoming generations by setting a bad example of not performing duty. So just to set the right example, you should fight and not run away. Kings like Janaka were all self-realized souls. Consequently, they had no obligation to perform the prescribed duties in the Vedas. Nonetheless, they performed all prescribed activities just to set examples for the people in general. Janak was the father of Sita and father-in-law of Lord Sri Ram. Being the great devotee of Lord, he was transcendently situated. But because he was the king of Mithila, a subdivision of Bihar province in India, he had to teach his subjects how to perform prescribed duties. So he was always going to the sage, to that rishi, and that rishi is a sannyasi, a brahmana. It is the duty of a kshatriya to seek advice from a brahmana, how to carry out the administration, not to decide on his own. Although he was self-realized, but still, to set the right example, he used to approach that sage, that rishi, that brahmana. He had to teach his subjects how to perform prescribed duties. Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal friend, had no need to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra, but they fought to teach people in general that violence is also necessary in the situation where good arguments fail. This is a very important principle Prabhupada has mentioned. That when people, those who do not follow dharma, those who are adamant to disrespect and disregard dharma, such person must be punished. Such persons are called demons. So demons should not be spared. So when good argument, when the path of dharma is being discarded or rejected by those who are demoniac, then those demoniacs should be taken to task. They should be punished. They should not be left. Like a terrorist who comes into the territory of India, we should not have this nonsense that please leave him. If we leave him, he will reform. He will not reform. If he gets the opportunity, he'll kill many more. Lord Krishna, okay. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, every effort was made to avoid the war, even by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We all know Krishna went as a messenger, and he even said that if the Pandavas are given not even the half of the kingdom, even if they are given 5 villages, they will be satisfied. But Duryodhan was very adamant, was very rigid. But the other party was determined to fight. So for the right cause, there is necessity of fighting. Although one who is situated in Krishna consciousness may not have any interest in the world, he still works to teach the public how to live and how to act. Experienced person in Krishna consciousness can act in such a way that others will follow. Perfect example of this principle is His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. At this age, today is his 74th birthday, his appearance day. With his body in such a situation when a normal person would not even step out of his house. He is traversing the world many times. Today I was hearing, Mohan Rupa Prabhu had asked him that, Maharaj, when you were not unfit, when your health had not fallen to such situation, you used to travel worldwide at least 8 to 10 times in a year. So now what is the situation? Maharaj said, I am traveling now 20 times. Even if the disability is there, even if the inconvenience is there, even if the difficulty is there, what to do? Enhance the service. Increase the service. Yesterday he was in Chennai. Today the Vyas Puja is being celebrated in Mayapur, and tomorrow he is leaving for US. And if you see, if the doctors are shocked and surprised that how can such a person travel? So many organs of his body do not function properly. But He has the determination. Why? Because he wants to set the right example. Till the last breath of his life, he wants to serve. He wants to live his life when he is engaged in service. This is what Prabhupada showed. Till the last final breath of his life, Prabhupada was translating. Because they are not in bodily consciousness, they are in Krishna consciousness. Bodily discomfort do not affect them. Externally, it may seem, it may look, but their consciousness is always connected with the Supreme. So they are able to carry out their service. Okay, so I'll stop here. It is a couple of minutes to 9. Yeah. So very famous verse which we will take next time. Very important verse is 21st verse. So here in this section, Krishna is talking about one who is performing yajna. One who lives a life based on performing yajna. But what is his position? What is his stage? And how he responds to situations in life. Most important, he is always self-satisfied. He is not hankering. He is not in pursuits of material possessions. Okay, any question or any doubt? So please ask. Silence, complete silence. Yes, Julamani Prabhu, from your group.
Yes, Prabhuji, it is from me. So one can come to the stage, as you rightly said, that by initially by chanting the holy name of the Lord and accepting the prasadam to this stage, the what Lord Krishna is describing here.
Yes, that is the clearing stage. One who is chanting means two aspects. One, he is reviving his relationship with the Supreme Lord. How he is reviving? Because he is expressing his desire to serve the Lord. Why we will serve? Because we have a relation with him. Why people work in this material world? Employer-employee relationship. What is the basis of the relationship? Is remuneration. But here, there is no worldly remuneration. The remuneration is the revival of one's eternal relationship. So when one is chanting, one is performing yajna. Yajna means he is getting purified. What is the purification? The false impression in his mind, in his heart, is becoming cleansed. And the eternal relation is being revived. And secondly, he is expressing his desire to serve the Lord. And by accepting the remnants of the Lord, he is freed from sins. So whatever he has done in the past, that is also taken care of. It is all demolished. That is all abolished. So he will progress in the path. His intensity to enjoy the worldly pleasures will gradually go down. His propensity to serve the Supreme Lord and his devotees will cultivate, will develop. That is progress. How to know that he is able to offer his possessions in service of the Lord? We go to some big businessmen, some rich people. We perform this big silver jubilee function. Some of you came. A huge mega event. 5 days of festivity, huge festivity. So it costed a lot of Lakshmi also. So some of them, I asked them, my known contact, that you please contribute. Most of them willingly accepted, but others, they have no desire. Why? Where is the criteria? Who will give and who will not give? To the extent he thinks that he is the owner, he is the proprietor, he is the enjoyer. For such a person, it's very difficult to give. Why? He does not want to give, he wants to take more. He comes to the Lord to receive more money. He is not interested in relationship. He is not interested in service. He is interested in only seeking more from the Lord. So many times I say, Sukh sampati ghare aave, kashta mite tanka. Then I will come and ring the bell. Om Jai Jagadish Hare. But to those who are chanting is not easy, Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is very difficult to chant. Why? Because you have to fight the battle with the mind. The impure mind, to the extent the mind is impure, it will rebel. It will not align to chant. So chanting is not easy. Don't think it is easy. Is it easy for you? Why there is so much of struggle? Why? Because the conception has still not changed. The conception is still that I am the enjoyer, I am the controller, and I am the proprietor. To the extent the conception will change, desires will change. To the extent the desires will change, we will not be in pursuit of worldly things. Then our inclination, interest, and aspirations will be for spiritual aspects. So what we have to do? We have to fight. And we don't have to fight the enemy from outside. The enemy is inside, which is not allowing us to connect to our real self, which is our Atma. Where is the soul captive? How the soul is captive within the body? Through the subtle body. What is the most prominent element of the subtle body? Is our mind, is our impure mind, contaminated mind, lusty intelligence, and false ego. So if we are able to chant and make our mind hear, then the impure mind will become pure. How do we know that we are progressing? To be able to chant easily. There will not be any much difficulty in chanting. There will not be any difficulty in waking up. There will not be any difficulty in performing devotional service. Detachment is coming and attachments are going down. So that is sign of progress. We will not be interested in anything which is not prasad. Anyone invites you to come to a 5-star hotel. Are you interested, Dolamani? What will be your first reaction?
No, Prabhuji.
We said no, we will try to avoid. Why? Because we know that is not prasad. We are not interested. Whoever may call wherever. This is a sign of progress. So how we have to perform, how to come to that level? That we must perform our duty. We should not remain at the level of desire. That is animal life. And means only action or performing action just to fulfill one's desires. Sensuous, sensual platform. That is the lowest level.
Prabhuji, you are muted.
I'm saying discussion time is up. Okay. Thank you very much for joining. And please try to perform at least one action in a day, which you want to offer to Krishna, which you don't want to enjoy. And the best action is chanting. Which Krishna recommends, that is amongst all these sacrifices, I am Japa Yagya. So kindly chant. Even the mind may resist or rebel, but don't give it up. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, all glories to the Assembly.